Thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight. Really, really appreciate everyone being here. This is another edition of what we've called Policy Perspectives. For the last 4 years, I brought commissioners, thought leaders, advocates on to these forums, and it's been a really great way of illuminating issues and giving all of you the opportunity to ask questions and get answers. And it's been really, really exciting. And I'm excited tonight because we have Andy Byford here. And for those of you who just joined us, I was saying that we had 646 RSVPs. We've had incredible guests for 4 years. We've never had this many people on. And to me, that speaks to how passionately people feel about our beloved Penn Station. And if it's not beloved now, we want to make it beloved, which is why Andy's here. And I'm just going to introduce Andy Byford. Andy Byford, a transport professional whose career has spanned 3 continents over 3 decades. And today he serves as special advisor to the Amtrak Board of Directors and is leading the effort to transform New York Penn Station. And Andy, I said this when we met, that I take full responsibility, full credit for you having this job and being in New York City, because I've been saying for years to Amtrak, you've got to get Andy Byford back to New York to work on this project. Unfortunately, I never put it in writing, so I don't have any proof that I deserve full credit, but here you are. And we're very happy to have you. Andy joined London Underground in 1989 as a uniform station foreman and has gone on to lead the largest transit systems in the United States, Canada, and the UK, as well as running day-to-day operations on Australia's busiest network. This has given him a rare global perspective on transport operations, finances, and politics that translates into his current role. And the mission of his current role is to deliver a world-class station that New York, New Jersey, and America deserve. Andy, I want to start out by asking you, how did you go from becoming a uniform station foreman to running the whole system in London?
Sure. Well, first of all, good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming on. And Eric, thank you for your leadership in setting this up. It's an honor to be on here, and just a very quick shout out to all the Amtrackers on, and also very good friends of mine, Chris and Debbie Greif. I know you're on. My colleague Jed Poster's on, and my good friend and colleague Kate Cunningham's here to keep me in line and make sure that we get the presentation up okay. So yeah, Eric, it's been a great career. It really has. And in some ways, it seems like yesterday I was a spotty graduate trainee station foreman wearing a very itchy, ill-fitting uniform, surrounded by angry customers quite often on my own at Regent's Park. Back in those days, no CCTV, no radio. You really had to think on your feet down there. But I was always very proud to work for the Tube. I come from a family from London Transport. My granddad drove a bus through the Blitz of London and he was LT, London Transport, for 40 years. So we're a real sort of LT family. But I'm very proud of the fact that how I made that transition was hard work, determination, and also quite often doing jobs that no one else wanted to do, real tough jobs, real unfulfilling jobs or unpleasant jobs. I volunteered for them. And I think that helped me sort of build my confidence and build my determination. Plus, we'd always wanted to work abroad. So my wife and I ended up moving to Australia. And you need a bit of luck as well, and good bosses. I've been blessed with good bosses over the years. But I cannot tell you how happy I am to have come full circle and to be back in New York City.
Well, that's fantastic. And speaking of jobs that no one else wanted to do, you are now in charge of fixing Penn Station. And today we're going to get a presentation from you They're going to give us a presentation, and we're going to put the slides up. And then we're going to take questions from folks. For all of you who are here when you RSVP'd, you submitted your questions. We sort of put them together, and we're going to ask a lot of your questions. If for those attending, if you have additional questions, you can direct message them to Carl Wilson in the chat. So just send your question to Carl Wilson. He'll relay it to me, and we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible for the next hour. So Andy, if you want to get started with your presentation,
Sure.
We'll start there.
That's great. So, Kate, just before you put it up, everyone watching, you notice my backdrop. That is a deliberate picture. That is a picture taken during the war. Actually, you can see, if you're close enough, you can see soldiers getting ready to go off to war. That's the beautiful old Penn Station. So I use that as a bit of inspiration. But if we just pop up the presentation now. So yeah, I mean, I'm honored to be back here. What I didn't say in response to that question you asked me, Eric, but it's very topical, it's very relevant, is that I've always been a believer, and you've got to build your own career. So no one gave me any leg up. I don't have a famous dad or anything like that. Yeah, I love my dad to bits, but you know, he's just his own person. But I've always believed in taking control of your own destiny. So how I actually got to be back here, and by the way, thank you for what you did, because I was told that there were people clamoring for my return, which makes me very humble, actually, or very humbled. So thank you for advocating for me. I was working on high speed with Jed, who's on tonight. We were working on a high speed program for the US, but unfortunately, for reasons that they explained at the time, the federal administration said we don't want Amtrak working on that on that high-speed program anymore. We want Amtrak to focus on its core business, so shut that project down. So we duly did that, but in that same week, having had that body blow, really, of oh no, we've lost our money for high speed. In that same week, we got told that Amtrak was actually being put unambiguously in the lead of the Penn Station project, and I jumped at that. Back to how I built my career, how I put in for jobs and worked my way up through the station grades from that lowly position of station foreman, worked my way up to general manager and ultimately to the commissioner of TfL. I said to Tony Kosher, please give me that job. I really think this is a job I feel strongly about. I'm passionate about New York City. I love this place. And I'm very passionate about this project as well. Please give me this job. I think I could deliver it with a good team. And here we are today, indeed, discussing it. So, okay, so let's go into the next slide. And I'll just headline for you what I'm going to be talking about. So I'll talk a bit about the challenges of today's station. We'll touch upon where we are now, but then we'll really get into the meat of the transformation that we want to effect. I'll talk a bit about stakeholder engagement, which is obviously very important to everyone on the call, and then we'll get into some discussion. So let's talk about Penn Station today. It is without question the central hub for the region. It's our most important station. We have something like 1,000 people working at Penn Station. It is a route that is served by 18 different Amtrak services. A lot of them shuttle through Penn Station. It's not just us, of course. We've also got New Jersey Transit. We've got the MTA working at the station. But it's incredibly busy. We had 12 million guests last year, or riders last year. And in the Penn Station of today, which was built for 200,000 people a year, when the old station got demolished and Madison Square Garden got built, 200,000 station a year. That's what 200,000 people a year. That's what it was designed for. Fast forward to today, and we have 3 times that number of people using the station, 600,000 daily users, which is more than the 3 New York airports combined, Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK. So it's incredibly busy. And it's only going to get busier because in the not too distant future, Metro North trains will come in via the Penn Access project. So this station is going to get even busier. And yet here we find ourselves with this incredibly important station on the most important corridor in the US, namely the Northeast Corridor, with 1,000 daily train movements. We're operating in a very cramped, unfit for purpose station environment. And many I've been actually on a train where people on arrival have sort of looked around and said, is this it? Is this New York City? They can't really believe it. It just doesn't seem that this is the station that they were expecting. And we all know what the challenges are. It's very, very hard to actually see the station from outside, because when that beautiful station was torn down, that spectacular McKean Mead and White station, the garden got built on top of it, of course, and yet you ended up with this circular drum of MSG and a number of station entrances, which in many ways have got less obvious over time, because you've got the VIP entrance, you've got various tents that have gone up, you've got the Hulu Theatre on 8th Avenue. It's really not that obvious where the entrances are. And again, many's the time I've stood at ground level contemplating the station, dreaming of what the new station's going to look like. And people have actually literally come up to me on the street, on 34th Street, 33rd, whichever street, and they've actually said to me, excuse me, sir, could you tell me where Penn Station is? And that's just ridiculous for what's supposed to be a world-class station and a modern terminal. People can't really see it because it's got very limited street presence. What else? It's located within a very crowded block, and certainly we're not proud of 8th Avenue. There's so much more that can be done in the immediate surroundings. Inadequate capacity. That picture there, you might think, if you didn't, if you were someone maybe not from here, you might think, oh, come on, Andy, you've just chosen a picture on a really bad day when maybe there were signal troubles. No, that's fairly typical for what goes on when the trains get announced on the New Jersey side. Suddenly there's this mad scramble to get down through those really heavy doors and to go down a narrow single flight of stairs, or double or dog leg of stairs, or maybe a single escalator. It's ridiculous. It's in no way, shape or form good enough for New York City, for New York State, and ultimately for the US. And I cringe every time I see older people or even younger people trying to open those big heavy doors. There's lots of sort of pushing and shoving. People are sitting down on the steps because there's nowhere to sit. You've got the big fans going. There's just nothing. It's completely suboptimal. Very low ceilings, very confusing layout with the different corridors. 33rd Street, which I'll come on to, has been completely renovated, which is great. Very limited natural light. It's tired, it's worn out. It's really not good enough for New York City. And then furthermore, if you look at that third picture, the third from the left, the station is safe. I must stress that. We wouldn't operate it if it wasn't. But look at that equipment. I actually think our staff are miracle workers for the fact that they keep this station going in spite of a very old electrical equipment, very old ventilation equipment, not enough escalators, not enough elevators, really suboptimal equipment that's increasingly hard and expensive to keep going. And I do worry that one day it'll just wear out. So let's say straight up, do nothing is not an option. And I know you get that, Eric. I just need all elected officials to understand that it's not good enough to just give it a lick of paint. This station needs urgent action. And then on the right there, you can see one of those suboptimal corridors, those huge columns holding up the ceiling, the very low ceilings, and the very sort of dowdy look. It's like a labyrinth down there. I've spent a lot of time on the station, and I still can't get my head around it.
Andy, really I got turned around last week. I've been living in the area for 26 years. I'm the city council member representing the station. I got turned around because it's like that back hallway. You forget where in the station you are, and you end up walking in the wrong direction.
You do, and even though some improvements have been made in recent years, which is a good segue to the next slide. Credit to my predecessors, nothing to do with me. Various improvements have been made. A number of the entrances have been improved. Amtrak itself, with Vornado, the property company, we completed the transformation of one of the entrances that you can see there, which is 7th Avenue and 33rd Street in 2023. So that's better, and that was all done as part of the Penn reconstruction that happened. It is fully ADA accessible, and without question, it's a better experience. Across the road, across 8th Avenue, of course, we've got the beautiful Moynihan Train Hall, what used to be the Farley post office building. There still is a post office in there, but that's much more like it. A single level concourse. You can see from one side to another. You've got the beautiful food court. You've got retail. It's lots of natural light. I saw that for the first time when I came back to New York from London, and I was really impressed. It's beautiful. Is it perfect? No, and that comes up in some of the questions. There's a few things that certainly I would want to see improved, but there's no question for Amtrak, and it's primarily Amtrak and a bit of the LIRR that use it. That's a massive improvement. And on the right, credit to my colleagues, my former employers at the MTA, that's 33rd Street corridor. And that used to have the cramped conditions, the low ceilings, the sort of dowdy finishes that the rest of the station has. Credit to the MTA, they took that on. They widened the concourse. They took away the false ceiling. They pushed up the ceiling up onto the road. And there is a lot of natural light in there and a much better retail offer. So things have happened, but it's still very piecemeal. The station still looks tired. It looks cluttered, and it's nothing like the grand entrance to New York that it once was, and that it needs to be again. And that's why we're moving forward with a top to bottom transformation of New York Penn Station. And just a little segue here, Eric, if I may. I use the word transformation deliberately because that's what it should be. And yet the projects that I inherited, there were actually two projects. There was a reconstruction project that MTA were handling. And then there was a expansion project that the Amtrak team were leading on. And effectively, in giving Amtrak the lead of this project, the transformation side of it was put on hold. Sorry, get this right. The expansion side of it was put on hold. So where my predecessors had been talking about having the MTA renovate the station, and Amtrak were going to build a whole new subterranean terminal building under 31st Street, that is now on hold. So Block 780 is not going to be demolished, and we can talk about that some more in the questions. So I believe very strongly that is the right and moral thing to do, because I said 2 years ago, actually, before I had any inkling that I'd be taking on this job, we cannot countenance expansion until and unless we have squeezed every single ounce of additional capacity out of the existing Penn Station, which I believe that you can do in two manners, which I'll describe in just a second. But anyway, back to the project. I don't call it reconstruction, I call it transformation. And that might sound like semantics, but it's meant to be a statement of intent and ambition. Modernization, reconstruction, that sounds like, yeah, make it a bit better, tart it up a bit. Let's have a coat of paint here and maybe a few nice bits there. And no, it's transformation. Let's make this a world-class station for New York. The signage, the retail, the commercial offer, the customer service, the logistics, the operation, and yes, the look and feel of the place. Every single aspect of this station should be worthy of the city of New York. And I want every single touch point to be consistently excellent once we've finished. So job one is renovate and modern, transform. Second is to increase capacity. So yes, even though we've put expansion on hold, we are going to do a study with the FRA to see what more could we do to squeeze more capacity out of the existing station by, for example, widening some of the platforms potentially, and making much better use of the existing train shed from a railroading perspective. It is just not the norm to have mainline trains sitting in platforms for 30 minutes. It just isn't. You don't see that anywhere else. There must be more efficient ways of using this station, and we're going to look at that. We need more elevators. We need more escalators. We need to make this station safer still, bring it up to modern fire life safety standards. And I also want to see exponentially more efficient station operations. We currently have, believe it or not, 3 separate cleaning contracts for the complex. The MTA cleaners do their bit, the Jersey cleaners do their bit, and Amtrak cleaners do our bit. That's ridiculous. We must be able to consolidate those contracts. Ditto. It would be way more efficient to have one combined maintenance contract for the whole of the complex. And we currently have 3 police forces patrolling the complex. Let's take a look at that. So I think there's a lot to do on efficiency. We've got to be mindful of accommodating additional growth in the future, such as Metro North and such as bringing in all the trains through the gateway tunnels. And finally, I want this to be world-class. So what's the base scope? The base scope for the project, and it will be a P3 master developer project that we're leading, which we've been asked to do by the federal government. The base scope is the area in blue that you can see. So it's basically the immediate surrounding of Penn Station, plus what's called the service building, which is that beautiful building you can see on your screen's bottom right, the last remaining piece of the McKim Mead and White station. And there's not a lot in there, actually. There's some equipment, but that building is criminally underutilized. We want to make it better. We are going to specify, normally with a P3, you don't tell the developer what to do. You get them to come to you with your ideas, their ideas. But we're saying, look, let's not play games here. We definitely want all of the remaining entrances brought up to standard and fully ADA compliant. We definitely want a single level concourse. We want the back of house operational spaces to be upgraded for the miracle workers, my colleagues who keep this place running. And we do want to see the train shed updated. But we're going to go beyond that by asking the prospective developers in the competition, well, give us your additional ideas. What else could you do beyond that base scope area? We already know from talking to you, Eric, and talking to your colleagues around the city, there's a desire to improve the public realm in the area around the station, you know, particularly even up to and including Koreatown and the area between Penn and the Port Authority bus terminal. There's a lot to do. So we're saying to them, come to us with your ideas on commercial development opportunities. Give us your ideas, even if it's not on land owned by Amtrak. But whatever you come up with, we're not bound by those ideas, but we just will wait and see what commercial opportunities are there in order to limit the amount that Amtrak has to pay back from the money that the private sector will put in. Next slide. So let's talk about schedule. Those checks down the bottom, we are powering through this project. We were given this project in May of this year. We've already held a press conference with the Transportation Secretary Duffy at Penn Station, where we put the industry on notice and we said, get ready for this competition. It's serious. We held a couple of what are called industry days back in October, where we got the prospective bidders ready to start thinking about what their bid might look like. And dead on time, we issued a release. We said, give us your letters of interest, prospective bidders in October. So that's gone out. We now evaluate those letters of interest, those that pass muster, and by that I mean that are credible, not flights of fantasy, not whimsical ideas, but credible ideas that have that show a project that could be delivered. We will then choose. My job will be to evaluate with a panel following a standard Amtrak procedure, doing it by the book. We will make a recommendation to the Amtrak board in May of next year, which is the project, which developer do we propose to go forward with. The Amtrak board will make that decision. No one else, the Amtrak board. And the feds are represented on the Amtrak board in the form of the deputy secretary. But because we'll be looking to the feds for literally billions to get this thing and make it a reality, we will then take the proposed design to the White House so the president can see it. But it's an Amtrak decision that will go forward. And then we'll spend the next year and a half working up all the NEPA work and getting the design to 30%. And here's the second marching order. Not only was I told it's got to be a P3 master developer, we have to have a shovel in the ground by the end of 2027. So watch this space. That's going to happen. And in parallel, next slide, please, the FRA are conducting what's called a service optimization study, which sounds very grand, but it's the independent study that people have been clamoring for years. So that was one of the first things I did when I spoke to the FRA, said, let's get it done, and you should do it. It should be independent of the railroads. It has two purposes. One, to look at what physical changes need to be made in the train shed to switches, platforms, the ladders, which are the means of going between platforms. What physical changes make sense that we should tell master developers to factor into their designs? And two, over a slightly longer period, what potential is there for through running? In other words, for trains not stopping at Penn, emptying out and going back to go and get more people from Jersey or from Long Island, respectively. It's similarly not just emptying out and then going off and sitting in a depot for the rest of the day, but providing through service through the center of New York, maybe in the future, New Jersey up to Connecticut, New Jersey through to Long Island City. Our trains, Amtrak trains on the Northeast Corridor currently run through. But if you could have more trains going through the platform and staying in service, the trains could stay in the platform for less time. You could preload the platform. I'll come back to that. You could have the trains stay in the platform for less time. Therefore, arguably, this is the theory, you need fewer platforms. And if you had fewer tracks, if you had fewer tracks, you could widen some of the platforms. And then that would finally enable us to preload the platforms. There wouldn't be the mad scramble that there is today, where you get told at the last second. So see if there's a potential to have the trains staying in the platform for less time. You need fewer tracks. You can have wider platforms. You can preload the platforms that remain. That's the plan. That's what we're looking at.
I got a question, Andy. It says that the study began in October 2025, and it'll be a 2-year study. Yet it says that there's Penn Station oriented results expected in spring next year. What does that mean?
Sure. So there's two phases. The study's in two parts. Phase one it's a 6-month sprint, and that sprint will identify those physical changes that, irrespective of whether there's a market in the future for through running, which is the purpose of the second half of the study, which is 18 months. Therefore, 18 months plus 6 months equals to 2 years, 24 months. The first 6 months are seminal, because what they will do is identify those physical changes that make sense irrespective of what we subsequently do. So we want to factor them in then to the design that we are asking whichever master developer we choose, and we don't know who that will be yet. We're asking that we will ask them to factor in those physical changes to their cost, their schedule, and their design. So then the second part of the study is to look at via market research. Is there indeed a market for going from New Jersey to Connecticut? Is there latent demand? We don't want to run trains round full of empty seats, but if there really is a market, then that's the golden opportunity we have. It's the norm everywhere else I've worked. London with Thameslink and with the Elizabeth line, Paris with the RER. Trains don't typically just come in and stop. They carry on through the city, and that has huge economic benefits, not only to the hub, in this case Penn Station, but also to sub-centers. Let's think that sort of Newark and Yonkers and Ronkonkoma, like all sorts of economic benefits ensue to other areas where suddenly people have got access to airports, to jobs. It really does open up a lot of opportunities. So that's why the study takes 24 months.
What is there at Ronkonkoma other than the trains? I don't know.
Well, let's find out. Let's let the study do its work. I mean, maybe Ronkonkoma is a bad example, but maybe somewhere a bit closer in. But the study really will look at, is there a market for this kind of thing? It may come to nothing. And one of the many people I've spoken with are people who live on Block 780. I've been very careful to say that it's on hold, the talk about an expansion. It might be that if there's a delta between what the ultimate capacity needs to be, particularly when the gateway services start coming through, the new trains from new tunnels from New Jersey. If there's a delta between that and what we can squeeze out of additional capacity at the station, we might need to do still a bit of expansion, but I would hope it would be minimal. It might be just under 31st Street, for example. So we've been very careful. And my promise to the wonderful people who live in Block 780 is, if that changes, I will be the first to go round, literally, not just phone them up, go round onto the street and talk to them about it. I believe in transparency, which is why I'm on
That's great,
today.
Andy. I really appreciate that. And just for the folks on here who might not be steeped in this, the need for more capacity relates to the fact that we're adding 2 new train tunnels under the Hudson River. So now then we will have 4. And if you build new tunnels without increasing the capacity of the station, you won't be able to take advantage of those new tunnels because you're going to have trains. You're not going to be able to run. But if you can expand the capacity of the station, you could run many, many more trains. But we want to find a way to do it without having to demolish an entire city block, which they were on track to do.
Yeah, sure. At some astronomical expense. So, what we've done in making it the transformation project rather than the 2 separate but complementary projects is we're saying let's look at this through a new paradigm, a new lens. Let's look to see can't we use the existing station much more efficiently through some physical changes and some service changes, i.e. through running and the potential there. So I believe that this is not only the right thing to do, it's the moral thing to do as well. Next slide, please. So nearly done. So a few things on project funding and financing. We've been given a grant of 43 million to support getting the master developer procurement competition underway, which has now started. We've asked for letters of intent from prospective developers and to bring on advisors who have already largely started. There's some more detail on there. We've got some ideas on how we can recompense those bidders who are unsuccessful, for example, to really attract really good quality firms to participate. We will need, there's no sugarcoating this, we will need billions of federal funding, federal, state, city. So lots of public money will need to go into this because this is supposed to be a PPP, a public-private partnership, but it's simplistic and naive for anyone to think that this whole project will be completely publicly funded, because that ain't going to happen, or that it will be completely privately funded, because I don't think that would happen or should happen. The reason being, and I have to explain this sometimes to people, a PPP stands for a public-private partnership. You'll notice one of those P's is not philanthropy. They don't do it for free. They expect to be paid back. So what we should be looking to do is maximize. If you think this is the amount of money you need to do the whole job, I want to maximize the public funding element. So the amount left to be repaid through commercial opportunities, through running retail shops, through what's called availability payments. In other words, the railroads paying for an upgraded station. I want to minimize that such that this is an affordable proposition. And certainly when I go before the board next May, there's no point in me going before the board if it's an unsustainable, unaffordable proposition. So that's the challenge. We run the competition, but we look to make sure we've got that capital stack affordably populated. Next one. A bit about the timeline. We've already talked about those items in green. So the letters of interest from prospective bidders will come back in December. We'll then choose those that have passed the hurdle of the evaluation criteria for the letters of interest, go for an RFP, which is a request for proposals. We have some backwards and forwards with the various bidders. And then the proposal submission deadline is April, so that we can then evaluate them again through a lens of a normal Amtrak procurement, expedited, but a normal, robust, auditable procurement process. One thing I should stress is you might notice I've not said whether the garden is moving or not. Well, I don't know that yet. It's not really my decision. But also, for the purposes of the competition, we are staying silent on that point, because it's really important that we don't rule out those designs that are predicated on the garden either moving or staying. And I suspect we'll have some examples of both. So let's deal with that later once we've seen what are the designs, whether the garden stays put or not, the designs, what does that deliver to New Yorkers? How much does it cost? How long will it take to build? How constructible is it? All of that will get factored into that critical decision that we have to get the Amtrak board to make in May. Then all being well, we go out to contract with a big public statement in June. And then, of course, ultimately that shovel in the ground by the end of 27. Very nearly done now, and then we go to questions. So this could not be a more complex cast of characters. Everyone agrees on one thing. The garden as it is, sorry, the station as it is, not the garden, the station as it is suboptimal. No one likes it. I've not yet met, Eric, anyone who said to me, leave it alone. It's beautiful. I like it. What's wrong with it? No one wants that. Everyone agrees that something needs to be done with Penn Station. How we do it is the tricky bit because there's so many players involved. The two states, New York and New Jersey, New York City Council, obviously, the mayor of New York City, the MTA, New Jersey Transit, property developers, the various community boards, the DOT, the Federal Railroad Administration, and up to and including the White House. So it couldn't be a more complex cast of characters. But the one thing I'm committed to is sessions like this. I've talked to lots of media outlets. I've been going to various presentations. I've stood on the street and talked to people. I've spoken to people from Block 780. I've walked Block 780. I've been in the church. I've been on the radio. Talking to elected officials. We have a monthly meeting now with elected officials. We've restarted what's called the SWAG, the Station Working Advisory Group. And my commitment to everyone on this call is that we will do this throughout the whole process. Even when we're building the new station, I've got an idea of maybe having a pop-up in the station, a location where people can literally come and ask us, how's it going? What happens next? I would be happy. I can't be there all the time. I've got a job to do, but I'd be happy to go down there several times a week and personally answer questions on this because it's your station that we're delivering. Next slide. And that's it. So, Eric, it's a bit of a rattle through, but what I wanted to leave you with was just a few key points that we're determined to do this. 2, we're talking total transformation of Penn Station. 3, that it will be that this transformation will include looking at different service patterns to solve problems that have dogged Penn Station for years, like narrow platforms. 4, that this will be an Amtrak board decision and no one else's. It's an Amtrak board decision. Yes, we'll show the design to a few people, but it's an Amtrak board decision that will make it happen. And then 5, my commitment to absolute transparency throughout this process. And you know that we've already had various meetings, and I appreciate your leadership on this file, sir.
Thank you so much for that presentation. And I think we could take it down, and I'm going to just read off as many questions as I can that people have submitted. I want to start by asking about a public-private partnership. Why public-private partnership? Why
Sure.
not just have the government renovate the station, build the station?
Sure. So in the ideal world, that's exactly what I would do. Because then you haven't got any money to repay. We could obviously, we would seek to get the best possible deal for the public purse. Because at the end of the day, people talk about, the government should pay for that. Well, the government doesn't have any money. The government gets its money from us. It's our money. It's taxpayers' money. So, but ideally, I'd love to do that because then you don't have to repay anything. You get the job done, maybe some loans at government rate. Fantastic. But that's been looked at before and tried. Don't forget, people have talked about renovating Penn Station, rebuilding Penn Station for literally decades, and they can't make the case because there's not enough public funding to make it happen. So my view is it needs to be a mix of public money and private money and private ingenuity, with private companies putting up their finance first, sorting out the finances, taking risk. They will want to be repaid for the element that they put in. But the key here, as I said in my presentation, is if that's the overall amount, let's see how high we can get up that pot in public funding to keep the the private sector repayments to an absolute minimum. That's the reason why it's a P3 proposal.
I think it's worth noting that the new airports, the new LaGuardia, JFK, those are P3
They are.
projects with it's primarily the fees from the airlines that repay the developers. Is Moynihan a P3?
I think Moynihan was a P3, yes. It predated me, but I think it was. Look, there's been some, for all of complete transparency, there have been P3s that have gone really well in the world, and there's been some that haven't gone very well. But the only good news is, or rather the good news, it's not really an only, the good news is you learn from others' mistakes. I'm glad we're not going first. So we take the elements of those schemes that went well, and we do not fall into the pitfalls that others fell into on those that did not go so well. But this is a robust competition, and one of the reasons we're going to be so careful on the evaluation is to make sure we know who we are dealing with, who are they, who are their financial backers, where's that money coming from, what's their track record, how good are they at building things. We will do our homework to make sure that this doesn't go south.
Got it. And it would be a consortium of a team.
Sure.
Here's a question about the study relating to through running. How do we know that it's going to be a truly independent, unbiased study? And a related question to that is, why would expanding the tracks underneath the ground south, why would that necessitate the demolition? Why can't you just build the tunnels deeper? I know the answer to this, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So on the latter, don't forget what I said. In a way, the question's moot because we're not going to do that now.
Right.
But this needed to be such a big structure that you couldn't underpin the buildings with, and also go around their foundations. There's some quite tall buildings on Block 780, so you couldn't easily do that. You'd need to. It's not you're just building a tunnel. You're building a huge cavern of probably double stacked tracks and quite wide track formations. So you couldn't really do that. But the good news is we're putting that on hold. It's unambiguously on hold. We're not going to do that anymore. And sorry, Eric, what was the first part of the question?
How do we know it's going to be an truly independent study?
Sure. So, well, that was important to me. When I took the job on, you do your homework about what's gone on before, and it was clear that people did not believe what they were being told. And I'm not here to diss my predecessors on any of the railroads, but it's kind of human nature. People saying, well, you, Amtrak, MTA, New Jersey, you're saying it can't be, we can't do any expansion within the station. It's got to be this massive expansion project under 31st Street. But we would like an independent review of that. Is that actually true? We'd like an independent view of the modeling around that, around the train capacity modeling. So to me, it was always important that there should be an independent review, and that's what we're getting. It's the reason why I'm not doing it, why Amtrak's not doing it, NJT, MTA. No, it's the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration. They've got no skin in this game. They are independent, and they have brought in new consultants who've not been involved before. And they're using proven modeling tools and techniques to come up with the right answers. Now, we're going to have some input into the study because there's no point in them coming up with something that's completely unworkable, but it is a truly independent study, and I want nothing to do with anything that smacks of a done deal. It is, my guarantee is it is an independent review.
Elephant in the room. Penn Station, Madison Square Garden, rather. And I know you had indicated that you didn't really want to get into the future of Madison Square Garden too much because you don't want to influence what kind of creative ideas might come forth as part of the RFP application. But do you think that there is any potential to moving Madison Square Garden? I know there's been some plans suggested that would move it across the street out to the east side of 7th Avenue, and you'd have to replace a couple city blocks with it. Do you think that there's any hope for a solution like that? And do you think that a truly great station could happen with MSG there?
Sure. So again, the reason that we're not opining at the moment is A, we don't know. B, the future of the garden is not really in Amtrak's gift. It's I can't determine whether or not it moves. And it's also City Council has a role, because right now City Council has given Madison Square Garden a further 5 years on its permit to continue to operate. And I think we're 2 years already into that. There's another 3 to go. Jim Dolan, who's the owner of Madison Square Garden, he's rightly very proud of the facility. They've spent nearly $1 billion on renovating the arena and making it the great place that it is. So he's in no particular rush to move. But if there was a scheme that came up, a project that came up that did move the garden, well, firstly, to be fair to the owners of Madison Square Garden, they ain't going to move until and unless a new facility is built, because otherwise, literally, the Rangers and the Knicks would be homeless. I don't think anyone wants that. And that in itself would add cost and time. Plus, you need to have a double block in order to accommodate the garden. The garden it can't be fit in just one normal block. It's actually a double block. So I would say, anything's possible. That could be done, of course. You could take extra time and build a new garden. But equally, you can have a world-class station with a new single-level concourse and much better entrances, fully accessible, much more ambient, natural light. You can have all of that and leave the garden in situ. So for various reasons, then, we are leaving that question open. I expect there to be proposals predicated on the garden staying put and proposals predicated on the garden moving, and we will then evaluate them against all those variables, how much it costs, what the environmental impacts are, how long would it take. We'll factor it all into the mix and then make a considered and very, very carefully thought through recommendation.
And do you think there's any potential for a plan that leaves flexibility for the future in the event that the garden would one day in the future move?
Well, look, I'm not an engineer and I'm not an architect, but I can't really see how that would happen. And I think we've got to be careful here that we don't end up blighting ourselves in that, if you were to leave that question open, how much would you really want to spend on the new station if you thought, well, then you're going to have to come back and do it all again if the garden suddenly moves. So I think this is our opportunity to fix this issue once and for all, whether the garden moves or the garden stays. Let's do the right thing and give New York truly a world-class station and not leave it still blighted. And then suddenly, Block 780 residents might be relieved. Oh, thank goodness, because they're not now expanding into our block. But if you left the question of the garden open, wouldn't you then leave some other people sweating on death row because they're like, oh my God, I have a feeling in a few years' time, they're going to come back and demolish our block in order to move the garden. So my view is, let's do this properly. Let's choose the design and stop talking about this, make the thing a reality and move on.
Here's a question relating to funding. The question is everything at a standstill because of Trump's freezing of all funds for building the tunnel to New Jersey, the Gateway Tunnel?
Sure. So, my understanding of that freezing of the funds was it was all to do. It was linked to whether or not the project, the Gateway project, was compliant with one of the specific executive orders. So the onus was on the project, which isn't my project, by the way, but I keep an eye on it because obviously the two are complementary. Was on the project to give evidence or demonstrate to the administration that it was in fact applying with that, or complying, with that executive order. I think there was also some politics linked up with it. It was all at the time pretty much of the shutdown, which is now over. So let's just say, well, let's wait and see what happens. We are proceeding with the study with the FRA. We are proceeding on the basis that the Gateway tunnels will eventually go ahead. They need to. Let's wait and see what happens, but it's certainly not impeding our work. We're pushing on.
Here's a question asking, what is the relationship between the Amtrak Board of Directors and the federal government? What is the relationship to New York
Sure.
City's government?
Good question. Well, so Amtrak, people often think, that Amtrak and say me, I'm a public servant. I'm not actually. Amtrak is actually a private entity. It's a bit of an oddball because it's a private entity, but it's only got one shareholder, and that's the federal government. So ultimately, the feds own Amtrak, but it's technically a private company. So for that reason, the Amtrak board has included within it, there's one position on the Amtrak board reserved for the Secretary of Transportation, who normally delegates to the Deputy Secretary, and it's Deputy Secretary Stephen Bradbury who is on our board. So that gives you the link to the feds. The feds provide most of our funding, the big capital items, some of our day-to-day funding. We're looking to get neutral on day-to-day funding and cover our cost of operations. But we're certainly we're very grateful to the feds for the support we get given. So that describes that relationship between the feds and the and Amtrak. And then we see City Council as very much a very key stakeholder. It's City Council who represents the city and therefore the citizens.
Darn right.
So yeah, you are also in charge of permitting. So we like to keep you well apprised, and that's again why when you asked me would I do this, I said absolutely without question.
Thank you. What about above ground improvements? The streets surrounding the station and the blocks surrounding the station. Will that be part of the scope of this?
Well, we got to be careful we don't get scope creep and take on everything, take on the whole area between Penn and the Port Authority bus terminal, because otherwise this project will never happen because it'll be too big, it will cost too much for the specific of the project that I run. But that said, I've spoken to people from the business improvement districts and from various community groups, the community boards. We all recognize that the area around Penn needs to be exponentially improved, and particularly I'd say on 8th Avenue. And I also don't want to see what I would call a tide mark between a beautiful new station. You come out the station, you're like, oh, did they run out of money? So I think what the key to cracking this is to work with community boards, work with City Council and other entities like the Korean Association to get some additional money to finish the job off and to do the surrounding area such that, in maybe 5-6 years time, however long it takes, you've got a spectacular new station worthy of New Yorkers and New York. And when you come out, it's easy to find your way around. The public realm is pleasant. It's beautiful. There's bike stations, places to eat. This is, again, I've used the words before, it's our golden opportunity to not only transform the station, but the whole neighborhood.
I can't believe we're already running up against 6 o'clock. Here's kind of a fun question. Will the improvements let us know track numbers further in advance? And that's a question I have. Why is it that track numbers are always given at the last second? Why can't it be more like an airport where you know your gate well in advance?
Sure. And I've asked this question when I first came to New York. I thought, well, why is there this sort of guessing game about where the platforms are? It's linked to the fact that we have very, very narrow platforms, so we can't preload the platforms. In a lot of mainline stations where I've lived, you can go down and wait on the platform, wait for the train to come in, unless it's a terminal station, but you go down and wait on the platform for the train to come in, because then the train comes in, people get off and you get on. We cannot do that at Penn because the platforms are so narrow. We have enough problems clearing the platform before we can then let people down. So that's why we don't announce it. Sometimes the dispatchers are still juggling trains in the number of platforms we've got and tracks we've got, so that they themselves only know with a few minutes to go which track they're going to use. In the future, remember what I was saying, in the future, if we can have trains spending less time in the platform, I think there's a way of saying, well, you need fewer tracks, therefore you can have wider platforms. then we cracked the problem. You could preload the platforms. Plus, with hugely additional numbers, many more escalators and elevators, that's how you really keep the platforms clear and allow them to load and clear much more quickly.
So most times the dispatchers, they know the track, but if they told everyone right away, like early on, people would go down there too early.
They would, because don't forget that in some cases, yeah, sure, you could have a member of staff controlling the escalator, but there's quite a lot of different ways down to the platforms, and it's so crowded down there. That's why, in my opinion, we're selling New Yorkers short if in the future people go, wow, look at this beautiful new station design from street level, beautiful new single level concourse, but you go downstairs and it's still as cramped and hot and unpleasant as it currently is. Let's again try and do all three things, and that's for the purpose of this study. How can we squeeze more capacity out of the existing footprint?
Well, Andy, I really want to thank you for being here. We are just past 6 o'clock, and just to recap it all, there is an RFP out there, and by this spring, Amtrak will receive responses to that RFP from master developers with their visions for what they want to do to reimagine Penn Station. You will select a developer by when?
By May of next year, against a range of evaluation criteria, not just the design, but how you're going to pay for it, how long it's going to take, etc. By May of next year.
Got it. And when are the responses due to the RFP?
They are due April of next year. So,
okay, so you're going to pick in a
about
month.
6. Well, it's slightly more than that because it's at the beginning of April and then the end of May. So we actually get a good amount of time. And my evaluation team colleagues and I will shut ourselves away and pour through all of this detail with our advisors to make sure we come up with a defensible, sensible, auditable decision that will pass muster with the Amtrak board. It would be a failure for me, personal failure, if I went before the Amtrak board and they didn't accept my recommendation. So we'll work really hard at this because we want to get the imprimatur of the board in May, such that we can get a shovel in the ground at the end of 27.
Shovel in the ground the following
year. And because what you're doing from May of 26 and June of 26, when you sign the contract, through to the end of 27, you're going from 10% design to 30% design or higher. It's a progressive build design. Plus, you are that's where you're now. You know which project it is that you need to fund. You are then working, going to Wall Street, putting together the funding stack, getting to what's called financial and commercial close. And at which point, if you achieve that, you sign a contract, and then pretty much the next day, shovel in the ground.
Okay, and then when will we be walking into a new, beautiful Penn Station?
Well, that's the golden question, which I can't answer. It's I often get asked, well, how much is it going to cost, Andy? When's it going to be ready? Well, it depends which project we choose.
Got it.
If it's one that involves buying a whole bunch of property to move Madison Square Garden, to demolish Madison Square Garden, to build a new Madison Square Garden, get it open, and then do the station work, we're talking a longer time.
Right. I would definitely be collecting Social Security.
Well, but then equally, moving the garden might mean you open up other opportunities. So it's impossible to say, but I'm going to say roughly 5 to 7 years. I mean, the quickest we could probably do would be 5, but it might be 7. Just one point, Eric, it's a badge of honor for me. People on this call have bothered to write in questions, and we only got to maybe 7. I will personally answer every one of those questions. I'll send in the answers to your office.
Wow. I hope you don't run against me for office one day, Andy, because I would be in big trouble.
No, Eric, I like a challenge. I wouldn't want to do your job, my friend.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Really, really appreciate your time. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We're going to be having another one of these forums with the Immigration Coalition in a couple weeks. And we really, really thank all of you for being here. I hope this was as informative to you as it was to me, and looking forward to continuing this conversation and finally getting a train station that's befitting of the greatest city in the world. Thanks, everybody.